Welcome back, everybody. We are now joined by Dr. Jason Mars, where he will be talking about a new voice from a strange place in the AI revolution. Jason, so glad of you to join us today. For those of us in the audience, Dr. Jason Mars was the founder of Clink, conversational AI company, and an associate professor at the University of Michigan. I'm so excited to be listening to this presentation. I will be in the background taking furious notes. Jason, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you see my slides? There we go. Beautiful. So I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you all today. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure. I got to say thank you to the Structurally team, as well as the entire team involved with Flyover Tech Fest. This is one of the most well-run events that I've seen, especially given our crazy COVID times that we're with. Anyway, let me jump right in. And the way I wanted to start this conversation was with this slide. So if you look at this slide shows us a timeline of the human species, right? So this is 12,000 years of the human population. And if you look at this slide, it's interesting, right? Just around, the 1700s, we had an inflection point in the population of the human species. For millions of years, through our entire existence, the scale of our population on this planet grew at a modest rate, right? A more regular rate. Some stuff happened in the last 3 centuries, in the last few centuries, that caused us to skyrocket. And in this environment where we're growing as a species, I think it's a responsibility for all of us to think about how we can create and benefit this world, how we can do things that create an environment for continuous flourishing of our species. There's something special going on with this anomaly in the universe that is us. And this is a responsibility to engineers, to scientists, to entrepreneurs, to business people, to artists, to everyone that creates things, and everyone that puts hard work in engaging our neighbors, each other. And that's what is an underlying driving mission and principle for all of the work I do. Now, I want to talk about a journey that I've been on in this environment, in an environment where I believe strongly that we should do good on this planet. So I'm a professor. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm a professor of computer science and engineering at University of Michigan. I've been on a crazy journey since I met my wife, Dr. Ling Tang, who's also a professor at Michigan. We've teamed up to take on hard problems and to cause a meaningful difference. Now, this journey started in grad school when we met each other and started doing research together. And then it went on into our professorship, where we were working on the problems we believe to be the most meaningful problems on the planet for now and in the next 10 years. How do we solve the problems that are preventing us from realizing human potential in the next decade? We've done some phenomenal work in the academic realm, pre-Clink, right? Up to 2015, we were funded by Facebook and Google and Microsoft. We spent time contributing technology to their ecosystems to increase scalability, to reduce energy costs, to reduce the cost of doing the processing that humanity needs right now. We were funded by IBM Watson to create the next generation of AI. We were funded by Intel and the National Science Foundation to create vision applications like Terminator, which is awesome, where you could identify everything in the vision. And we on this journey, we created Sirius, which was an open source conversational system with vision and voice capabilities. Now, we did a lot of work, right? We wrote a lot of research papers. Indeed, we're both inducted into the Hall of Fame for research productivity of top tier research in the most prestigious venues for computer architecture, computer systems research, reasoning about scalable systems for artificial intelligence, et cetera. But that's great, right? Like, we were doing all this great work, and we stepped back after, I don't know, the 30th paper and said, well, are we changing humanity? Are we doing something meaningful for the world? And we realized that you have to take your intellectual contributions and put it into the lives of humans on the planet. And that's why we created Clink. We started Clink to disseminate advancement of technology to the masses, in the hands of people. The best way to do that is to create a company, to commercialize yourself, and not necessarily wait for someone to benefit from your intellectual ideas and then decide to commercialize it. It turns out that 99% of the research from engineering scientists, engineers, professors, end up not ever seeing the light of day in actually improving people's lives. Only about 1% actually get out there. So we created Clink to make a difference. Now, Clink was an incredible journey, and it happened in a strange place. It happened in Ann Arbor, Michigan, not the East Coast or West Coast, not Silicon Valley, San Francisco, or the East Coast area, New York, etc. And under our leadership, it grew incredibly. We raised 3 rounds in a short amount of time, right? As CEO, we did a seed round, 250K, eLab, phenomenal local investment group, Series A with Drive Capital, who cares about this region deeply, 6.5 million. Series B with Inside Ventures. We broke records for tech companies in Ann Arbor when it comes to the speed and growth of our contribution to the world. And we took on a holy grail problem. This is the problem that everyone cares about. Conversational AI really is an amalgamation of all kinds of interesting technical and scientific problems to create one experience. This is something that Apple, Google, Amazon, there's another one I'm missing, Apple, Google, Amazon, what's the other one? Microsoft has been investing heavily in and has created a lot of momentum to productize. However, we observed a stagnation in the market that we believed could be transcended with the next generation of technology. So we grew the company to 120 people. Under my leadership, we achieved over $10 million of revenue, ARR around $9 million, year-over-year growth, average 3.2x. It was a phenomenal creation in this ecosystem, in the Ann Arbor ecosystem. So this demonstrates that you do not have to be on one of the coasts to do phenomenal work. Right out the gate, incredible recognition. Awards from numerous places, most innovative CEO, best in show at Bank AI, Finovate 2016, best of show, accolades from the press, Clink creates the most advanced artificial intelligence, etc. And what caused this, right? And it was one key insight. And this is how I would describe it to potential customers, right? I would say, well, look, there has been an inflection of the science of how to do conversational AI and how to do NLP in general. And this inflection point, this new evolution when it comes to the style of AI used is not generating the value in human lives that it should be. It wasn't being uptaken by essentially the market at the time. And that was to go from a parts of speech tagging, computational linguistics approach, the approach where you identify the nouns, verbs, and adjectives in a sentence and create rules and grammars as to what the system can understand, to a deep learning approach where words wash over a neural network, much like my 3-year-old, my 5-year-old learns language without having any notion of what nouns are or verbs are, using a completely different approach. And this is how I would explain it in general. But just to give one slide of techiness, I'm just going to get, I promise, just one technical side. The key insight really behind the technology is recognizing the epic disruption that the new scientific approach of embeddings, language models that embed in the way you represent words as numbers, embed in that intelligence, right? So simply in the encoding of the text that is the stream of words, you can embed so much high fidelity knowledge. For instance, you can create a numerical representation for, say, king and man and woman and queen, where you take the numerical representation of king you subtract man from that numerical representation and add woman, and it'll produce queen as an embeddings, or a point in that embedded space that is very close to queen. Basically, taking words and encoding them deeply with intelligence was the first step of this insight. Good, intelligence in the words, encoded in, scientific approach to do that. Then taking that encoding and then training neural networks, transfer learning, taking that already intelligent ones and zeros, and then training new models with that gives you an ability to capture a much higher bandwidth of knowledge and code many more patterns into this neural network approach. And that has been disrupting our field. I know you've probably heard the news. Microsoft recently licensed GPT-3. GPT-3 is one such encoding, right? It's actually 1,500 times bigger than what was recently popular, BERT, right? It's a massive model. It encodes the entire internet, essentially. And that encoding is worth $1 billion to Microsoft. This is changing the world, and that is precisely what Clink has adapted and innovated upon to create its amazing technology. Of course, you have to do things with the dialogue management so that you can have a conversation and the AI like remembers where you are, remembers what you said, is able to reference back knowledge it's already procured, so it's flexible and you can heal conversations. So these innovations, these scientific innovations, is what allowed for a Clink to actually be able to deliver on the promise of a completely different approach to AI that transcends what was believed to be possible, right? And so we did that at great scale. We worked with some of the most sophisticated enterprises on the planet. We closed some of the largest deals of startups our size. Indeed, when we were raising money, from venture capitalists, they would be in disbelief that a company of 30 people can close a deal with a company of 100,000 people that is more than the initial investment of the company in one deal. And so we were doing that because this was a holy grail problem for society, and people hadn't seen what was possible yet with the absolute state-of-the-art in technology. We wrote dozens of patents. We wrote numerous papers, research papers, from the innovation that was going on in the company. And so when we deployed this to actual human beings, if you think about Alexa and Google Home, just anecdotally, I know that my friends, when they started using Alexa and so forth, everybody was using it for a while and then it fell off very rapidly. However, when the conversational experience works and you can deliver value, what we observed with our experiences launched to millions of people is that month over month over month, more and more users were choosing to use conversational AI to solve problems as opposed to the mobile app itself. This is a virtual assistant embedded in a financial mobile app. And people prefer transferring money with voice. Hey, send $100 to my mom, rather than tapping 14 times to do a funds transfer, because it worked. And it not only did it just work, it worked every time. And so we saw an increase in how many times folks were even using it, when, how many interactions were they having with the virtual assistant over time. And the completion rate was 92%, and we're seeing this continuously, right? So after about 5 years of creating this contribution to the world, I've stepped back. There's a phenomenal set of leaders right now at Clink that's continuing to take the journey into the stratosphere when it comes to contributions to the planet. However, I stepped back. I'm working on a new technology that I believe will have a massive impact. It turns out I learned a lot about challenges when it comes to building highly sophisticated, multifaceted artificial intelligence applications and limitations in what is possible. And so I was debating whether I should share it. This is early, right? So we're planning to announce early 2021, but I'll give you a little tidbit. Basically, what we've created is a new computational engine for AI that has a new programming language. This programming language was created over tons of learnings from prior experience. And I think that the languages that we use to express solutions to sophisticated AI problems is actually a limiter. We're essentially in this assembly code language or punch card era of ways of expressing solutions to computational problems with AI. And so this language, the unique contribution is it allows for something I call collective intelligence. More on that later. On this language, on this computational engine, we're working on a product. And this product is a platform for human growth. And it's going to be direct to consumers. And it's built upon this novel technology stack. That's all I'm going to say for now. Expect an announcement Q1 2020. But really what I want to dive deep in is, how did this happen? Why did this happen? I mean, there's 1,000+ conversational AI startups in the universe. I mean, in the world. And many of them are struggling. Most of them kind of peter out and go extinct. Actually, many AI companies go extinct, right? So how do you actually create a vehicle to disseminate this kind of contribution from an unlikely place, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and in a way that was able to essentially beat out the incumbents so fast, right? Well, there's a couple key elements that I think are critical, especially when you're in an unlikely place, like in the middle of the country. And there's a couple key principles you have to follow. One of them is, first, you have to have the right attitude, right? You have to have the attitude of taking a leap. I've seen many folks treat a vision as a side project. But you really have to engage it like a life's mission, right? You have to have the mindset that this is a mission that will be achieved and a conviction around your vision that's going to drive you there. The expectations you have for where you're going to take your contribution to the world is what will define your potential. I'll say that one more time. The expectations you have will define the potential of what you can achieve, right? So if you expect to touch every human life, that becomes your potential. If you expect to have a lifestyle company and make, I don't know, 50K a year extra, that's what you're going to achieve, right? Your expectations will define your potential. And so you have to have that mindset if you want to really achieve greatness. Now, another key insight and another key principle that is used and the culture that was fostered at Clink was continuous evolution and adaptation. You have to chase harsh environments to challenge and condition yourself, your company, and your ideas. You cannot stay in an echo chamber. You cannot be safe in a realm that you won't hear the hard truths about the idea, the creation, the thing that you aspire to achieve. Because when you start, you may start like the creature on the upper left of this picture, right? You might start as a little rabbit thing with teeth in that picture. But you might end up, if you adapt quickly enough, perhaps the market requires that whale, and you have to get to the whale as fast as possible. Now, if you try to avoid the realities that will condition you to realize your potential, then the evolution is going to be slow. And in that, you may go extinct, right? If you evolve too slow. So you have to stay outside of the echo chamber. You have to really embrace the harsh realities. A concrete example is often I'll see entrepreneurs essentially reject harsh feedback from venture capitalists. The thing is, you have to take all of the feedback and assimilate it. This is going to seem to contradict what I'm going to say very shortly, but you have to take the feedback and assimilate it into your understanding of truth and where that gap is between where you are and where you need to be, so that you can close the gap. Take that criticism, allow hard truths to force you to challenge yourself to do better. That's incredibly important. Concretely, on investors, and I mentioned it's going to seem to contradict, you'll see. Investors will notice you no matter where you are. Look, do not tell yourself or use as an excuse the fact that you're not in the valley as to why you are having hardship, because that's not reality. And we can tell ourselves things to make us comfortable, and that's nice short term, but you will not achieve your goals if you do that, right? The reality is investors they will look anywhere to see the lower right of this screen, to see up and to the right, right? So it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in Timbuktu, right? I don't even know where Timbuktu is, but you know what I'm saying. Like, you can be anywhere on the planet. And if you show demonstrable promise with that, you will attract the interest of investors. But in order to engage this journey, especially with adaptation in mind, when you engage investors, and this is like super important, this comes from lots of learnings. Like, a lot of folks will say, I want an NDA with the investor. I want to keep my thing stealthy. I don't want people to steal my ideas. You got to get rid of that right away and share so that you can get the feedback that allows you to adapt, right? And the best investor relationships never starts with a pitch, I like it, money. It never goes, like, the best relationships don't go like that. The best relationships are more of the style, you get to know the investor, they coach you, you adapt a bit, you change, and you build a relationship over time. I might be running up on my time limit, so I'll just run through.
You're plenty good.
Oh,
you're plenty good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And the mindset of the special, remember that, and this is the contradictory part, remember that investors look for patterns. They look for hump of the curve patterns that will lead to company success. That's their job. That's their conditioning. They're conditioned to find the patterns for predictable success. However, for you to be a successful startup, here's a contradiction. You have to diverge from the masses. You have to diverge from the pattern. So that's a contradiction. The thing is, you will get lots of advice from many sources, but you have to integrate that with what you know to be true, right? What you know to be right. Even if it flies in the face of your investors, you have to pursue. I'll give one concrete example. My seed level investor, they really believe that I need to get letters of intent, talk to customers. I went off and said, no, we're going to go stealth mode and build something that no one has ever seen before. We spent 9 months doing that. And that's what led to all of those awards that I showed earlier. However, during that 9 months, they were like, I can't control the CEO. Like, we gave him the directive to go talk to customers before you have a product, before you have anything to show. Try to get excitement, show letters of intent. We want to see indicators that this is good. And I was like, we need to focus on building something no one has ever seen before. We did it. It was massively successful and raised a massive round after that success. We went with what we know. We saw in the market that there's too much noise. Everybody's saying the same thing. We have to show it because nobody's showing it. Your insights, let that drive you. Coming up to the end here, pitfalls and learnings. So there's some things we didn't do well at Clink, and there's some things I didn't do well as a leader of Clink, right? First and foremost, there's qualitative and quantitative company building. There's a qualitative mindset and a quantitative mindset. Early on, it's very tempting to be qualitative. There's 10 people, you can help everyone with everything. And then, you just jump in and you help. Oh, I can help coach you, etc. But metrics is going to allow you to scale so that you can operationalize your company properly. I can get into that more offline if anyone's interested in chatting more about that. Evangelical versus scalable, recognizing what success is. You can have success and it may not be scalable success. You might have success because it was an evangelical kind of sale, evangelical relationship. So you're leading folks into a new market that they don't understand. However, you may not be able to get 20 salespeople to lead people on a journey that they don't understand. Understanding the difference of what's scalable from your go-to-market product fit and what's evangelical is very important. And I believe that we're in a very evangelical phase when you're working with massive big whale enterprises, but not so much when you're working with developers and the people that are actually trying to build stuff. Institutional organization, leadership, and culture. I led the company with a very bad mantra. My mantra was not work friends, real friends. Early on, this was great, right? Because everyone is a group of friends. Our success was so rapid, our scaling of the company was so rapid that I didn't keep up with that perspective, right? So I was like, no, we can all be real friends throughout this entire journey. I believe in everybody. However, as you scale as a business, your numbers of people will scale, and so will the delta between the leadership, executive leadership, and the rest of the company. If you're buddies at 4 people with an engineer, and you're just great friends with an engineer at 4 people, when you're 130 people and you're the leader of the company, Your engineer is still an engineer, but you're something very different, right? And that creates an environment where you have to adapt. And I used to have the belief that, well, you know what, we have to do a RIF, reduction in force. I've got to do demotions. I should do it myself. We can still be friends, but you have to adapt that perspective. And so those are important pitfalls. 2 more slides. Also remember that the iPhone was not the first iPhone. The Palm Trio was the first iPhone. Apps, icons, App Store, identical. Palm Trio failed, iPhone succeed. Your objective is to have the insight to know why. And I'm not going to answer the question. I have a hypothesis, but ask me offline. But understanding the why, that insight is going to allow you to know timing and when you will succeed with an idea. And I want to wrap up with this slide. In just the last few years of our epic growth, we discovered electricity in like 1900s, 1960 something, whatever. Space and computers was in the 1960s. Internet came 1980 to 2000 is when Netscape was invented. That's where I put the arrow there, when it became popular. AI, just recently. Our progress as a species is accelerating and at a very fast rate. So who knows what the next 50 years hold? And I'll just say, find your place in that next 50 years and contribute to the growth of humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mars. That was absolutely incredible. I think everyone here and everyone listening were just in awe at the energy and transparency and insights you brought. That was phenomenal. I'm so excited to hear more about what your stealth company is next year. I'm so excited to stay in touch, learn more, and just hear more about your fascinating approach to life. Appreciate it so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye, everybody. Yep.
Up next, we have Eddie Schleiner, lead copywriter at a very well-known brand, G2. If you're in the SaaS software space, there's a 100% chance you know what G2 is. Eddie Schleiner up next. Also co-founder of, what is it? What's Eddie's co-founder? What is Eddie the co-founder of?
Founder, very good copy.
Oh, founder of Very Good Copy. Sorry, Eddie. Up next, Eddie Schleiner. See you soon.